And I could not be happier to be here. This topic is so close to my heart, as I'll explain in a minute here. And it's so important. It's so important for me to spread this message of having entrepreneurs really, not just focus on their business, but also build their personal wealth and build that legacy that gives you so much wealth that it gives you more to pass along to the causes and the people that matter most to you as well. So we will dive right in so we have enough time for questions at the end. All right. So Linda, you were so close. I pronounce it X squared wealth planning, but that's okay. It's new. Everyone will know what it is in time, right? So X squared wealth planning, that's exponential growth and potential, is kind of how I see that. And today, like Linda said, we're going to talk about building wealth beyond your business and how you do that and how you even start to frame that in your mind. Now, I grew up in what I call a blue collar entrepreneurial household, which means my parents owned their own business, but it was in a really physically demanding profession. So when I was 3, my parents started a residential painting business in Chandler, Arizona, which is right outside of Phoenix. And right off the bat, I'll answer the question that everyone is definitely thinking right now is, can you fry an egg on the sidewalk? Yes, you literally can fry an egg on the sidewalk in Phoenix in the summer because it's just horribly hot. Anyway, so when I was growing up and my parents were, starting their business, money was really, really tight for most of my childhood, even though it really seemed like my parents were working all the time because, my dad was a journeyman painter. He also drove a taxi. He also delivered pizza. My mom raised me and my 3 brothers, worked in the business, worked part-time in a drugstore. They were working nonstop. And my child brain was too little to really understand everything that was going on, but I was aware enough to know that my parents were working all the time. They were always stressed out, and we still didn't have enough money for the things that we needed, and definitely didn't have money for the things that we wanted. So, that was back in the early 80s when they started that business. And now fast forward a long time to 2008 and the Great Recession in the US. And, the family business was struggling really hard to stay afloat at that time. My mom was running the painting business, and I was almost 2,000 miles away in Cincinnati, Ohio, kind of starting my own career in financial planning. And it was absolutely breaking my heart to see how hard she was working, how much she was sacrificing to pay her employees, to pay her operating expenses, barely having anything left for herself. And, through those several years that the recession lasted, the business really didn't last through that time. And it took, another 10 years for her to, she cared for my grandmother for a time, and getting back on her feet was a big deal. And for me, at that time in my life, I couldn't do anything about it, really. I was not close. I was brand new, and I could see that there were issues, but I couldn't help her as much as I wanted to at that time. And as I've continued to meet more and more entrepreneurs over the last, 14 years, as Linda said, I've realized that the way that I watched my mom pour her heart and her literal blood, sweat, and tears into that business and into her family without building any, true financial stability of her own, that is not uncommon. It is so normal to see this happening over and over again. And, the fact that she was not an outlier was, that was such a big thing for me to learn as I, began working with hundreds of entrepreneurs. And so as we'll kind of talk about through our time today, most small businesses are not equipped to handle a significant financial crisis and come out the other side, really ready to grow and thrive again. But what you'll also learn is that no matter where you are right now, right from where you're starting right now, you can build a thriving business, and you can build so much wealth in your business and in your personal life that you can leave a financial legacy, not just for your family, but for whatever it is that is really important to you, the causes, the people, the places, whatever it is that matters and is on your heart. We can build wealth for all of those things at the same time. So we're going to look at what it takes to build the vision for your legacy, We're going to look at 3 of the big issues in your business that really could derail that vision, and then what it can look like when you have that right team in place to help you make all the decisions that you need to make along the way. So I want to pause here and talk about what financial legacy actually means. Now, I'm talking to a room of, mostly women, but, very high achieving, driven women. And I'm sure that every single one of you has at least thought about what you want your legacy to look like. But have you actually considered like how much everything you want to do is going to cost? Have you put a dollar amount on that? I think that most people probably haven't. So we're going to go through a little exercise to see what that looks like. So let's start with retirement. So let's say your average expenses, throw a number out there, is $15,000 a month that you want to be able to maintain when you're retired without working. So $15,000 a month, $180,000 a year. Who has any idea how much money is going to be required in order to allow you to do that? Do we have any guesses? You can type it in the chat. I want everyone to let us know. 3 million, that's a good guess. Anyone else? 6, a good guess there too. 5, okay, yep, we're all really close here. So 4.5, y'all are zooming right in on it. So in order to provide $15,000 a month, you're going to need between $3 and $4 million. And that's assuming 7% per year investment return. So that's our baseline. We're going to start, we need at least $3 to $4 million if we're going to have that level. And then you're going to adjust based on less or more, right, per month. Next, let's think about future generations. So do you have a dollar amount in mind that you want to leave maybe your kids or your grandkids, maybe enough for education for the next generation, or seed money for more people in your family starting their own business? Have you thought about that at all? The other piece that I hear a lot is having a family member who has special needs that are ongoing, and they're going to need care for their whole life, and being able to plan for that as well. So does anyone have, I want to know if you've thought of anything. Is there, like I said, a dollar amount that if you could give your kids when you pass away, anything that you want to leave? People that I speak to want to leave something. They want to have, yeah, there you go. Not sure, but something. Yeah, life insurance, Patricia, that's really a good piece of that. A lot of people have this number swimming in their head of $1 million. I don't know why I hear it so often, but I want to leave my kids $1 million each one. So we'll say that that's Sherry, you don't have children. I appreciate that too. Thank you for letting us know that we are all different in this room. And if you, let's say we have, let's say we have 3 kids, 5 grandkids, and 1 family member with special needs. We've got another $4.5 million there. And lastly, when I meet women who have these big visions for the future, one of the biggest things that that is heavy on my heart is what people want to do with their money. Like, what's your big thing that matters to you in the world? And I meet so many women entrepreneurs that want to leave a big impact, like building houses for the elderly homeless people in their communities, or creating resources to support entrepreneurship for women in developing or war-torn countries. Like, these are women that I know and that I work with and that I love. And I can't believe how beautiful their visions are. But do you have any idea what it's going to take if you want to do that? If you want to create scholarship funds, or, be an angel investor? Any idea what it takes to provide $100,000 per year, we'll say? What that looks like, if you want to have $100,000 per year in perpetuity, it's going to take about a $2 million endowment for $100,000 per year at 5% investment return. So if you have a bigger vision than that, it's going to have to scale up. If you have a smaller vision than that, it can scale down. But just looking at that all together, that right there is in the $9.5 to $10.5 million range. And most people don't understand that that's what it takes. It takes money in order to push a vision forward. And so my goal with my clients is to, and to every business owner that I meet, is to help you understand the beautiful things that you can do when you have more money. So right now, you might be wondering, all right, this is great. We're looking at all this stuff, but how can you even think about that when right this minute, you really just want to grow your revenue and you want to know how you're going to be able to hire the next employees that you need to grow that revenue and how you're going to take a vacation without having to work through 75% of it, right? So I'm here to tell you right now that your legacy, this stuff that we just looked at, that matters right now. Because if you don't start with the end in mind, these things aren't ever going to happen. You don't leave a legacy by accident. You leave a legacy by making thoughtful and intentional decisions all along the way. And as you hold this beautiful vision that you have out in front of you, you can make those intentional and thoughtful steps, day after day and year after year until, 30, 40 years from now, all of a sudden you've lived this beautiful life and you've got this legacy that's unfolding before you. And it started because you thought about it, because you put a plan in place and you kept moving forward. So what I want to do right now is to help you start the process of making sure that you are building a business that is going to be profitable. You're protecting your business and making sure that you're going to survive through the next crisis, because there will be one, probably multiple, and how you're going to then take the fullest advantage of the retirement plans that you can, so that you can save more and pay way less in taxes. So let's look at tip number one. Now, tip number one is to establish a system for your business income that puts owner's pay and profit front and center. Now, that might seem really backwards because you're like, okay, I have to pay people. I have to pay my employees. I have to, pay my vendors. There are expenses. And I know that, right? It's not a secret that we have all these other expenses going on, but you are never going to be able to build a legacy if you don't pay yourself first. And your business being profitable is actually going to make it worth more in the end too. So by paying yourself and taking profit in your business, not only are you helping yourself and building personal wealth, your business is going to be worth more when you go to sell it. So it's a double whammy in the best way. A healthy business is profitable. It pays its owner or owners a regular salary. It covers any taxes that are owed, and it covers all operating expenses. So if you aren't sure where all the money in your business is going, or if you have no idea if your business is profitable or not, and if you're getting to tax time and you're kind of freaking out because you're having to pay your taxes out of your own pocket, this next section is going to give you some of the information you need to help change all of that. So first of all, I want to stress that creating profit and having steady owner's pay is a choice. It doesn't happen by accident. It's not like, oh, look at that, there it is. You have to choose to take your owner's pay from your business, however that's structured. And if you aren't in control of where your business income is going, that means your business is instead controlling you. And that's really obvious to feel, right? You might feel like you're still living paycheck to paycheck or project to project, however you get your income. Doesn't matter. As soon as it comes in, it's out and you're waiting for the next paycheck. Or you might feel like you have to take on every single client that comes in the door, even if they're not a good fit for you and you know it. Or you feel like you can't take a vacation, or when you do take a vacation, but you're actually working the whole time and your spouse or whoever else is, watching the kids and you're just working. I've done it before. And the last one that breaks my heart a little bit is that people say they keep thinking about just going back to work for someone else because it's just so much to deal with, right? So being on the other side of that, I want to tell you that you started your business because you have this beautiful vision of serving people in a different way. and bringing something to your industry that's only you are uniquely qualified to do. So creating a system for your income that starts with making sure that your business is profitable and forces you to really evaluate where and how you're spending your business income. That's going to help you take the reins back and drive your business rather than let it run wild. So this chart right here is taken from Mike Michalowicz's book and system, Profit First. And it gives a good starting point for how to break down the income that comes into your business. And this chart here divides it by categories of total revenue. So no matter where you are on the scale, from 0 all the way up to 50 million in revenue, if you don't have a system in place to make sure that you're realizing profits and taking that steady owner's pay, I highly, highly recommend either reading or listening to Profit First, just to get an idea of how the system works and to see if it's something that you can apply into your business. I don't use it, point for point. He recommends at least 15 accounts to break things down in. For me, that's a lot. So I make sure that my business owners start with 4. They always have to have the first 4 accounts: the profit account, the owner's pay account, tax savings account, and operating expenses. If we can at least get those 4 things dialed in, it can make a huge difference in how business owners are feeling. So, if you are currently making $1 million of revenue in your year, you might be wondering how a business owner making $10 million in revenue could be floundering with paying its owners, but it happens more often than you might think. And actually, I'd love to hear from anyone in the chat. Has anyone else read Profit First or listened to it? And do you use those principles? Is anyone else familiar? I know there are some people who've talked about Profit First Professionals. That's another good resource. Patricia, yep, Profit First, and use it. Yes, love it. Yep, it's an easy read, easy listen. Mike Michalowicz is really funny. Highly recommend it. So now I'd like to take you through an example of how transforming the way that you treat your revenue can really transform your business and your life. I have a client named Margaret who opened her own law firm 3 years ago. And this year she's on track to make a little over $300,000 of revenue with plans to grow even bigger. She's doubled her revenue every single year. But in 2020, like a lot of businesses, revenue was down for several months in a row, and she started really panicking. She's got a son, she lives in a high cost of living area, and she's a single parent. So really worrying about how she was going to make ends meet, she decided to take a second job with another law firm and keep building hers. So Margaret is so hardworking that she's been doing a full-time job with overtime, making about $116,000 while growing her law firm this year to over $300,000 in revenue together at the same time. And the kicker here, and one of the reasons she came to me in the first place, is because she had only paid herself about $9,000 from her law firm that had made on track to make $300,000. She had taken $9,000 in owner's draw. And when she told me that, my heart just dropped because she came to me feeling she was so exhausted, and she just felt like she couldn't keep going at the rate that she's going, but she didn't know how to trust herself that she could pay herself from her law firm. So we sat down together, we looked at her profit and loss statement, we looked at her bank accounts, and her P&L showed that she had about $53,000 of business profit above her expenses at that point in the year. And I'm like, where? I can't see it. I don't know where this is. So she said, oh, there's this account over here. Oh, there's this account over here. Oh, and I have a lot in this one. And sure enough, she had over $50,000 of cash on hand, but it was over 7 different accounts at 4 different banks. And one of them was Acorn. One of the banks was Acorn. And at that point, we laughed. I mean, I told her, I said, Margaret, you're a squirrel. You're a squirrel. You are hiding all of your money from yourself in all these places, and it feels like you don't have anything. And she laughed. And, it was hilarious, but it also helped her realize what had to change, right? So what she did after that was, we were able to set up those 4 accounts, the profit, the owner's pay, the tax savings, and the operating account, she was able to consolidate all of her cash to one bank. And I want to show you how this looks now when it's set up. So her gross revenue is just about $25,000 per month. And on her very next reconciliation, on her next month, she was able to actually put these percentages in place. It was that easy, just literally just doing it. She just hadn't done it. She didn't trust that she could do it. But there it is. That's all she needed to do. And what I want to say is that I really want to honor the fact that she took such huge action when she felt backed into a corner, because that's what we do, right? As mothers and as, people who are caregivers of any sort, we take care of what we have to take care of. And she did what she had to do. She's been working 80 to 90 hour weeks, excuse me, without a break for over a year and a half to provide for her family. And until we started really talking through her situation, she looked just like happy, driven, cool. She's like, yeah, everything's great. Like things are great. This is great. This is great. Everything's great. And then, as we started peeling back the layers, she is just like, it's like remind me of a duck on a pond, right? So she just looks cool and calm on top, but underneath, if you look under the water, she is paddling like hell to keep up with everything. And again, kind of like the story of my mom, she is not alone. She's not one of a kind. And if you're like that too, if you're smiling and everything's great and you're another duck, you're just hanging out with Margaret on the pond, but underneath the surface, you're paddling like hell and exhausted. I want you to know that it doesn't have to be that way. I want you to know that you can be so successful. You can be successful beyond your wildest dreams, and you can get there with joy and with ease. It doesn't have to be hard. So once you have a system in place, excuse me, to pay yourself regularly, now it's time to make sure that your business can also weather the next financial crisis. Again, when it comes, not if it comes. Grab some water. So I find that women usually fall into one of two camps. Now I want you to think about this for yourself and, just write down which category you fall into. Are you person A that likes to stockpile cash and you feel safe when you can see like almost everything that you have right there in your checking account? You could grab it whenever you need to. It's not behind any sort of barriers, and you like seeing your cash there all the time. That's person A. Or are you on the other side, person B, where you feel like you're always scrambling and worried about how you're going to make payroll or pay for an emergency expense or anything, that comes up. You don't feel like you have the money there all the time. So what we're going to look at is how both of these, neither one is better than the other. Both of these are problematic for building your legacy. Now, if you're on the side where you're constantly worrying about inflows and outflows, your vision could be completely derailed if you don't have a strong emergency fund to help your business weather a financial crisis like the dot-com bubble or 9/11, 2001, right on the heels of that. Then the Great Recession in 2008, about 2008 to 2011, and then again last year, the recession from the coronavirus pandemic. There are national and global events that can completely, just wipe out our businesses that are completely out of our control. And, you can get through those. There are businesses that lasted through. There are a lot of businesses that started in 2020, but there are a lot of businesses that made it through. And how you do that is by having a strong cash position that will help you, when those troubles hit. So tip number 2 is to establish a 9 to 12 month emergency fund for your business. And the first 3 months, I always recommend that they should be in cash, like a savings or a money market account. And then you should have 6 to 9 months in something that earns more, but is still very, very safe and very stable and easy to access. So you'll typically see recommendations to keep 3 to 6 months of fixed expenses as an emergency fund. And that makes sense for your personal expenses and for people who have a regular W-2 job. and who aren't in business for themselves. But as a business owner, especially if you have employees that are depending on you, your reserve really needs to be higher, like that 9 to 12 months of operating expense range. And I also recommend that it be separate from your personal reserve and that you have that on the other side as well. So, whatever the exact right amount is, it's going to vary depending on your industry and your typical monthly cash flow. But again, 9 to 12 months of operating expenses is a good place to at least start the conversation from. So Alignable, company that does lots of studies, did a study in February 2021, and they surveyed 3,316 business owners. And if we filter those business owners down to the women-owned businesses in that group, they saw that 39% of women-owned businesses have less than 1 month of cash in their emergency fund. And then of that 39%, 19% of those had no emergency fund at all, none. So that means almost 40% couldn't even make it through 4 weeks without completely running out of cash. On the other side, the 38% that have 3 months or more in reserve, they may not be well protected either, because if a global crisis or even a personal crisis hits, you might need more than 3 months to either recover or pivot your business. So again, I'm going to hit it again, 9 to 12 months of operating expenses is a good place to start. Now, I want to pause here again, and I really want to reflect on what this information is telling us, because the implications are really heavy. Almost 40% of women-owned businesses, which likely means at least 40% of the businesses in this Zoom room right now, don't have a cash reserve. And that's a really scary statistic, because I know that every single one of us is going to need a reserve at some point. I don't know how much a reserve, I don't know what that's going to look like for you, but I know you're going to need it. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to, have your business survive through that crisis and be able to come out on the other side as the survivor and the thriver and continue growing. So what if you're on the other side instead? What if, like I mentioned at the beginning, you are on the side that says, I do have cash and it just piles up and I don't know what to do with it, but I'm scared to touch it. So if you're like that, if you're in that group, my educated guess is that you don't have 3 months of cash on hand. Instead, you have way more than that, like hundreds of thousands and potentially $1 million or more of cash that's sitting on the sidelines. And you don't want it there. You know it's not working for you, but it feels safe and you can see it, and you don't feel like, if you put it in the stock market, you don't trust that it's not just going to all blow up and go away. And I want to tell you that keeping too much cash on the sidelines is going to hold you back from the financial growth that you really want in your life. And it's like to the tune of millions, leaving millions and millions of dollars on the table over the span of your career. Now, I worked with a woman named Wendy, who is a fitness influencer, like Instagram, YouTube, the whole thing. And, one of the first in the game. And when she came to me, she had started her YouTube channel a couple of years before. Within just 2 years, she had endorsements and merch and all of that stuff. She had $1 million in cash, and she didn't know what to do with it. And she had been sitting on it for over a year already. But she was young. She had money coming in at her from everywhere, and she didn't know what to do with it. So if she had just left it, if we had said, okay, or she just decided, no, I can't deal with it, I don't want to do anything with it. If she had left that $1 million in cash, earning, we'll say a generous 1.5%, and let the excess, maybe $10,000 of cash accumulate on top of that year over year, she might have ended up with this teal line here, which shows over 20 years, that $1 million turning into about $4 million. That sounds nice. That's great, right? But instead, what we were able to do is actually get that money to work for her and, let her, she didn't have to leave it in cash. And instead, getting it invested and getting it working, she should have this green line instead. The projected amount goes from $1 million to just under $11 million instead after 20 years. So we're going to put that another way. That is a $7 million difference. $7 million just from not doing anything different, just from putting that money to work rather than letting it sit idle. Everything else was still just what she needed. She had a system for her income. She had her cash reserve, and the excess cash was invested and it got to work. So if you're in a similar boat and you've got cash piling up in your bank accounts, I want you to really think. I want you to think about this chart and this missed opportunity. And, think about the difference that can make for your business and for your family and for the legacy that you want to leave by doing something with all the cash. I don't know who said this first, but I love it. So I repeat it often. And that's that nothing bad ever happens when women have more money. And I want you to have more money so that you can do amazing things with it for yourself, for your family, and for, whatever that beautiful vision is that you have. So to reinforce tool number 2, having an emergency fund, having the right amount for your business, and investing anything that's in excess of that right amount is the second tool that you need to make sure that your business is on solid financial footing. So now you're paying yourself regularly, you're getting your emergency fund established, any excess cash you have is now invested, and the next step to building your financial legacy is to create ways to save for retirement in big ways and to reduce taxes efficiently and effectively, really effectively. So a powerful way that I help business owners like you create those opportunities is what I call layering retirement plans on top of one another, which not only allows you to, save bigger amounts, but it also allows you to, really pull down your taxable income. So tip number 3, layer your retirement plans for your business so that you can save a lot more and pay a lot less in taxes. Now, the best plans for you and your business are going to depend on several factors like how many employees are in your company and how are you paying yourself and how much revenue are you realizing on an annual basis. And choosing the right retirement plans for your business, that's a really complicated topic. So there's not really a way for us to cover everything that you need to know in the time that we have today. But instead, we're going to hit the highlights from a tax perspective so that you can understand why layering retirement plans on top of one another is such a powerful strategy. So this is such an important part of the wealth building journey. And if you need a little daily reminder of the roadmap that you want to follow to easily build your wealth abundantly, you can get that by emailing me at the email address right here and putting roadmap in the subject line. And I'll send you a PDF with all of the outline of what we talked about today. So what we're going to go over is not an exhaustive list of the retirement plan options that are available, but they are some of the most common ones. So let's chat again first. I want to know, do you have a retirement plan for your business? And if not, why? No, just kidding. You don't have to tell me that. But I want you to really think about that. Do you have a retirement plan for your business? And how are you funding it? So it looks like we have about 15 minutes. Is that right? Okay, good. I can wrap this up in about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. Thank you, Linda. So for anyone who's thinking, like, all right, this is weird, and I don't want to talk about if I have a retirement plan or not, it seems too personal. First of all, that's exactly why we need to share. We need to treat money as something that we can talk about. That's part of why having a wealth advisor is so powerful, that we can talk openly about your money. We tend to wrap that information up and then put it in a box and then put that box inside of a locked box and then take that box and put it back behind a curtain. And we don't want to talk about money, right? But the more that we can open up about it, the more the business owners, to your right and to your left and zoom up and down, we can see that we all have options. We have them in different ways. So again, what kind of retirement plans do we have? If you're in a partnership or in a company with employees, we have every different type of retirement plan has a maximum that you're allowed to put in each year. And again, this is US based. So I know New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and Europe. There are all kinds of different retirement plans. They're similar. I know that I've heard some of these things, right? So find, the right wealth advisor for you to go through your options if you're not in the US. But we've got different maximums for all of these different types of retirement accounts. And as you can see, going through this list, some of them are kind of low compared to the others. Simple IRA, 401k, you can't even put $20,000 into these accounts if you're under age 50. Whereas our cash balance plan can go up to $343,000. Our defined benefit plan can go up to $230,000. So let's talk about layering these retirement plans so that you can get the max, bang for your buck when you are saving for retirement, when you have that income available to do so. So the example we're going to go through right now so that you can see it is a 401k plus a profit sharing plus a cash balance plan. Our first example is age 45. The age matters, making plenty to save this much. So you can save $19,500 to the 401k, add the profit sharing on top, and then add the cash balance plan as well. And these three accounts layered, these three types of retirement plans layered on top of each other, allowed you to save $184,000, pull that out of your taxable income. And if you're in the 37% federal tax bracket, you just potentially saved 68 grand on your taxes in 1 year. If you're 55, again, you're over that 50 threshold. Now your maximum contributions are a little bit higher. Your 401k can take 26,000. Profit sharing is still 38.5. Your cash balance plan can now receive $207,000. So this 55-year-old just saved $271,500 and potentially saved $100,000 in taxes. Did not pay $100,000 in taxes. You can think of it this way: of that 271.5, 100 grand of it would have been paid in taxes instead. Think about that. So some additional options. If you don't have $271,000 available to save, there are plenty of other ways to add retirement plans together. If you're a small business and if you have a spouse as well, that opens up a whole other can of options that are available to you. Again, talking to a wealth advisor is going to be your best route to understanding which ones are right for you. So what does that mean over time? I'm going to wrap it up in 1 minute so we have time for questions. Over time, if our 45-year-old was able to start the max when she was 45, like we just saw, and continue saving the max through age 55, she's going to have almost $3 million in her retirement accounts, just the 401k and the cash balance. And she's going to have potentially saved over $900,000 in federal taxes. That's just federal. That's not state and local. So that is how you build a legacy. Making smart decisions, talking to someone and making decisions that make sense for your business. That is how you build a legacy. And the bonus is that all the research that is out there on retirement plans shows that if you have employees, having a match or a profit sharing plan of some sort helps retention in the biggest way. And just the great resignation is real, and you're probably experiencing it in your own business in some way. Having a retirement plan is going to help with that. So when you have a financial team that you can trust, you can build wealth with joy, and you can build your financial legacy with joy and with ease. And I want you to know that all of these things are possible. You may have not heard of some of these things because they do take a financial advisor, an actuary. You have to work with an actuary and an accountant to make sure that you're funding them properly and you're not going to get in trouble with the IRS. But these options are available. And once you know what they are, and once you have a plan in place, it's easy to do. It's easy to lean on the people that you can trust to help you make good decisions. So we have 11 minutes till the top of the hour, according to my watch. So I would love to have some time for Q&A, Linda. And I love connecting with people on LinkedIn, on my website, through a newsletter. So reach out to me however you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to keep the conversation going however we can.